Football Manager 26 drops soon, and if you're like me, you've already spent hours thinking about which club to manage. But here's the problem. There are a lot of teams with exciting challenges this year. So I've done the hard work for you. I've researched the most compelling, story-driven saves for FM 2026. They're not just big clubs, that you can go ahead and win trophies. They're clubs with genuine narratives like fallen giants, phoenix clubs that are rising from the ashes, billionaire takeovers, and clubs that literally almost ceased to exist 2 weeks ago. First on the list is Newcastle United. 2025 Carabao Cup winners Newcastle have gone through a difficult summer with the transfer saga of Alexander Isak, but now the club is in the Champions League with a bit of money to spend. The new Champions League format presents an opportunity for Newcastle to get into the knockout phases of the competition. You also get to manage 6'6" centre forward Nick Voltemade. Away from Sanu Tonali and Bruno Guimaraes, see if you can get young players like Luis Miley to reach their full potential. Can you guide them into the latter stages of the Champions League? Well, try your best. Domestically, there's also the small matter of retaining the Carabao Cup and trying to land the FA Cup. And based on their squad depth, it may be a tough job for Newcastle to push into the top 4 and qualify for Champions League using the Premier League route, but try your best. Next team on our list is Sheffield Wednesday. Now imagine a club that cannot pay players their wages. That is Sheffield Wednesday. Due to financial struggle, Sheffield Wednesday has failed to pay their players on time, and this has happened 5 times in the last 6 months. If you're looking for a tough save with limited budget, the Owls might just be the team for you. There's also the rivalry with Sheffield United to consider. The Blades have been in the Premier League more times than Sheffield Wednesday have, so can you find a way to lead Sheffield Wednesday out of financial struggle and back into the Premier League, and also make them a tougher team or a much bigger team than Sheffield United? Off to Northern Europe then, we're starting away in Norway with a club that is all about one thing, that is youth development. They have an exceptional youth recruitment here at Stabæk. Stabæk gave us Antonio Nusa. They've been obsessed with giving young players a path to first team football. Right now they're in the second tier after their recent relegation, but their academy is still pumping out talent. In FM 2026, you will meet Sebastian Olderheim, a current first-team player with potential. In the academy, there's Abel Sedegren, a 2009-born Norwegian under-16 international with 5 goals in 5 games. He could be the next Antonio Nusa. The challenge is to help Stabæk secure promotion back into the Eliteserien, then turn them into one of the best youth-producing teams in the country, even one of the best youth-producing teams in Europe. You can turn this into a build a nation save, develop your players, and finally get them into Norway to push hard in the World Cup. It may not be the biggest, but if you love scouting regions and developing wonder kids, this might be the save for you. Next on our list is Red Star, but not the Red Star that you know. This is Red Star Paris. They're one of the teams that I like to call anti-PSG, and Red Star Paris is a people's club, working class, left-wing politics, punk rock aesthetics. They're everything modern football isn't, the authentic grassroots rebellious kind of club. While PSG across the town have all the oil money and the Galacticos vibe, Red Star represents actual Parisians. They're in League 2 right now, fighting for relevance in a city dominated by sports washing projects. The narrative here writes itself. Can you prove that soul in football is more important than money, and that community actually beats the big corporations? This is a long save. It could probably last about 8 to 12 seasons, so it's like a slow burn. But challenging PSG is so satisfying when you use a club that is rooted in the soil of Paris. This next club is the one that actually got me excited to make a list of teams for you to manage. So here we're going to look at Covinho Honduras. They are a club in Romania. Covinho Honduras is a second division club that went on to win the Romanian Cup last season. This means that they're going to be playing the Europa League qualifiers while simultaneously trying to get promoted from their second division. This is insane. You're managing a European club from the second division. Back in the 1970s and 1980s, Honduras was famous for attacking football, scoring 3 goals per game. They've even played in the UEFA Cup back in 1982, but then communism fell and the club collapsed completely. They spent 17 years only being a youth club, and only recently have they been rebuilt. Your challenge here is immediate. Survive the Europa League qualifiers and try to get promoted into the First League. Establish yourself as a First League club and then build to try and sustain the club. I know it's challenging, I know it's chaotic, but it's absolutely worth doing. We're off to Spain now. 7 Europa League titles, 7, more than any club in history. But last season, Sevilla finished 17th in the Liga, 1 point above relegation. This is a club that is in absolute crisis. They've gone from Europa League kings to relegation battlers in just a few seasons. Their squad is also aging, finances are tight, and the glory days feel like ancient history right now. It's been 80 years since Sevilla last won the La Liga title. That was way back in 1946. With Barcelona and Real Madrid getting richer and dominating the league ever so often, it just gets really difficult for other clubs in La Liga. The challenge here is brutal. Stabilize Sevilla in the La Liga, rebuild the squad, restore their identity, and help them chase for another league title after 8 decades. This isn't just a first, second season something you can do. You could try to win the league in your first season. That's kind of how Football Manager works anyway. But give yourself time to actually achieve this. Call it 8 seasons or so. Build a strong squad that can help you dominate La Liga with Sevilla. You knew this was coming. Ryan Reynolds bought Wrexham when they were in the 5th tier. 2 promotions later, they're in the Championship with documentary cameras following them everywhere. This is the most famous non-league to glory story in modern football right now. The momentum is real and the investment is also real, and their expectations are getting bigger every year. Your job as Wrexham manager is to finish what Hollywood already started. Try to get Wrexham into the Premier League. You've got the backing, you've got the funds, you have the facilities. Now you also have the fan base beside you. You also have a very good stadium. But we know the Championship is a difficult league to actually get through. You've got Leeds United, my favorite club, in there. Southampton, Leicester City are also in there. So it's going to be tough to get out. But you can give yourself 3 to 5 seasons to try and turn Wrexham into a stabilized, consistent Premier League club. And if you can, try and push for the Champions League. Now, I'm not always a super fan of Brazilian league in Football Manager, but Cruzeiro is an interesting one. R9 actually played for this club. If you don't know who R9 is Ronaldo Nazario, the greatest striker of his generation. He went on to buy his boyhood club and save them from bankruptcy, but it didn't last very long. He eventually sold his shares, and after a lot of protests and criticism from the way the board was handling itself, Cruzeiro now has 183 million euros in debt. And they also have 2 Copa Libertadores titles, 4 Brazilian championships, and their history of producing incredible talent like Ronaldo himself. They've kind of not really done that in recent years. Your challenge here is to actually succeed where Ronaldo Nazario El Fenomeno actually failed. Try to make the club as rich as possible, develop young players and try to bring them to the top of the Brazilian division. Try to make them the best club in Brazil once again. Here's one of my favorite saves in Hertha Berlin. Berlin is the German capital, by the way. Hertha Berlin play at a legendary Olympiastadion in Germany. They're a founding member of the German Football Association, and they've had 10 managers since the last how many years? Since 2019, really. That tells you everything about how difficult this club is struggling right now. They've never won the Bundesliga in the modern era, and their last major trophy was back in 1931 during the Great Depression. They've been runners-up. They've had moments where it was almost going to happen, but it didn't really happen. You've not really had it, Here's the thing here you can actually do. Your academy is excellent in Hertha Berlin. They have one of the best youth ratings in the game. Normally, Bayern goes on to poach most of their best under 16 talent. So your job is to try and keep those players. I remember players like Jerome Boateng, Maximilian Medostek, Robert Andre. Most of these players actually came from Berlin over to Bayern Munich. So you have to secure your foundations, get the club, get your best players and try to keep them in the club. Try to develop more young academy players from your youth division and try to keep them at the club. Your challenge is actually bring stability to what seems like chaos at Hertha Berlin. Try to get promoted to the Bundesliga and stay in the Bundesliga, and just maybe, this may be the first time that they can go ahead and win the Bundesliga title. Give yourself time to actually achieve this, maybe 6 to 10 seasons, but imagine that Bayern Munich have genuine competition when you go ahead and take on this challenge. We're off to Turkey then. In 2010, Bursaspor became the only club outside Istanbul to win the Turkish Super League. The following season, they played the Champions League football against Manchester United, and they're now in the 3rd tier with only 43 million in debt. The fall from Bursaspor has actually been catastrophic. They've been through financial mismanagement, transfer ban, relegation to the 4th tier, and genuine bankruptcy is looming large on them. But they got promoted back into the 3rd tier last season and they're still fighting. They're a club founded in 1963 and they've just refused to go away. Your challenge as Bursaspor manager is to first of all stabilize the finances of the club. You can't really sign players or pay off any staff or upgrade any youth facilities yet, but just try to rebuild with what you have, and then when you get back into the Super League, the Turkish Super League, you can try to build the club again, upgrade the facilities, get the good staff, get good players, and then try to build the club and prepare for European football. Give yourself time to actually achieve this, maybe 5 to 8 seasons, but it's going to be a tough one, I give you that. But if you love a long-term save, Bursaspor in Turkey might be the one save for you. One of the shocking dismissals this season was Nuno Espirito Santo leaving Nottingham Forest. I have to admit, it's heartbreaking, to be honest. But Nottingham Forest are now in European competitions. They've won the Champions League twice under Brian Clough, a lot more than Liverpool did at that time. But since then, they've just been in a decade of, nothing really happening for them. But eventually they got into the Premier League, and Nuno Espirito Santo went on to take them all the way to the European places. They could have qualified for the Champions League, but they narrowly missed out. And now they're in the Europa League or Europa Conference League. I can't really tell which one, but they're back in Europe, right? Albeit without Espirito Santo. Now, assume that Nottingham Forest did not get a new manager and you are the manager in charge. So here is the job for you to do. Try to secure a European trophy in your first season and try to also stay stable in the Premier League. It's going to be difficult to actually jostle between two competitions like that. The hard part has already been done, being a Premier League club, an established Premier League club. Now the real test is actually push for Europe and try not to get relegated. This is the one you've been waiting for. On the 19th of August 2025, that's just a few weeks ago, Morecambe was rescued from administration. They were literally days away from ceasing to exist. Unpaid wages, massive debt, and the National League season had already started without them fielding a proper squad. Then Punjab Warriors completed the takeover and they cleared the debt, lifted the transfer embargo and appointed Asher Jova as their manager. But let's assume they appointed you as their manager. The first few weeks may be chaotic, but Miguel Aziz from Arsenal Academy signed for the club. Norwich loanees also arrived and they're trying to build a club that could help them secure a place back in the Football League. If you've played FIFA Career Mode at any point in time, Morecambe is probably one of the clubs that you could have met along the way. Even on Football Manager, if you've managed in the lower league, you probably have met Morecambe, but they almost ceased to exist, and right now they've just been saved, and this is your chance to actually help them secure a place in the Football League once again. Try to push through the Vanarama National League and get back into Sky Bet League 2. Now once you get into Sky Bet League 2, you know that Morecambe has never actually gone beyond League 2, so your plan is to also try to get as far as possible to also get promoted from Sky Bet League 2 and maybe get into the Championship at some point. Also give yourself a chance to go for a cup run here and there, either in the Carabao Cup or in the FA Cup. Blackburn Rovers. 2025 marks 30 years since Blackburn Rovers won the Premier League. Think about that, 30 years since Alan Shearer, Chris Sutton, Kenny Dalglish all shocked English football. 30 years since Jack Walker's millions made the impossible possible. It's also their 150th anniversary. The club was founded in 1875, so they're one of England's oldest clubs. They've won 5 FA Cups before the World War II, and also they're English champions in 1912 and 1914. That's also like 81 years before they actually won it in 1995. So it can't just take another 80 years, right? So find your way to actually help Blackburn Rovers win the Premier League. But first, you actually need to get out of the Championship. Blackburn has been dancing between 7th and 19th place in the Championship. That's not very good form if you want to get into the Premier League. So you have to build your squad, make them strong enough to actually get into the Premier League. Your challenge is clear. Follow Kenny Dalglish's footsteps and try to get them back into the Premier League. Schalke 04, one of Germany's biggest clubs, one of Bundesliga's most passionate fan bases, and one of the Champions League's most exciting clubs, but now they've hit rock bottom. Schalke 04 and Hertha Berlin finished bottom of the Bundesliga together in 2022-2023, and both teams were relegated in disgrace. So this is a club that has won 7 Bundesliga titles, 5 DFB Pokals, and they're one of the best academies in Europe as well. So where did all this struggle come from? They've had financial mismanagement, terrible signings and managerial chaos over the years, and the Veltons Arena holds about 62,000 fans, but it's usually empty nowadays. Imagine the atmosphere going to every home game, knowing that it's going to be a defeat, knowing that it's going to be tragic. This is your opportunity to turn things around for Schalke 04. Bring stability first, stop the bleeding, and then get promoted into the Bundesliga. Try to rebuild the squad from there and try to push for titles again. Schalke 04's fan base deserves better. Gelsenkirchen, as we know them on Football Manager, they deserve a lot better. This shouldn't take long. Maybe 3 to 5 seasons should be enough for you to secure promotion and become stable in the Bundesliga. But for Champions League, you should give maybe about 8 seasons for you to get into the Champions League. But if you're good enough, trust me, I know you can have it done in maybe 3 or 5 seasons. Deportivo La Coruña. In 2000, Deportivo La Coruña won La Liga with just 69 points, the lowest total ever for a champion. 2 years earlier, they had just been promoted from the 2nd division. Now between 2000 and 2005, they finished 1st, 2nd, 2nd, 3rd and 3rd again. They beat Real Madrid's Galacticos in the Copa del Rey final of the anniversary of Real Madrid's 100th year in existence. They also reached the Champions League semi-finals in 2004, beating Juventus and AC Milan along the way. Roy Mackay, Diego Tristan, Brazilian legends like Bebeto and Mario Silva, Jalminia, Fabio Conceição, these were one of the players that played for Deportivo La Coruña at the time. But then it all collapsed. Financial reality went on to hit them, and the big clubs obviously got richer, Deportivo got poorer. Now they're in the La Liga Hypermotion or Segunda División. They're in the 2nd division. They spent like 4 years in there in the 3rd division as well. their fall from grace has actually been brutal. But now they're slowly coming back, getting promoted from the Primera Federación last season back into La Liga Hypermotion, and your challenge here is a big one. You have to restore Deportivo La Coruña back as a La Liga club, cemented and stable, and then try to compete against Barcelona and Real Madrid and Atletico Madrid, as tough as it might be. This might be a long save, so I think 5 to 8 seasons might not be even enough for you to do this, but it's going to be a long-term save because of how difficult La Liga can be with Real Madrid and Barcelona and Atletico Madrid at the helm. But if you love a long-term save, you can give Deportivo La Coruña a try. Girondins de Bordeaux, 6-time French champions, 4-time Coupe de France winners, UEFA Cup finalists, Laurent Blanc's title-winning side of 2009. All of it means nothing if you're in the 4th division with 0 professional players. That is where Bordeaux is right now. They've been demoted from the National League 2 due to financial management, really, and they had a failed takeover. They probably are one of those teams that I thought were going to dissolve and cease to exist as a club. Every player's contract was terminated. Every single one of their youth players also, they actually left the club. Their training ground was closed. This is like absolute zero. So you're managing teenagers in the 4th tier of French league football, and you're playing in a 42,000 capacity stadium that is almost empty. It's like post-apocalyptic stadium. So for me, this is the ultimate football manager challenge, to be honest. It's like bringing a giant club that has fallen so far down that it's almost unrecognizable. But you have to try that in Football Manager 2026. Can you rebuild Bordeaux from the ashes? Can you bring them back from National League 2 into the National, and then also into League 2, and then back into League 1? Can you restore this 6-time champion back to relevance and push PSG again at the top? This might be your longest save, so probably 12 to 15 seasons, probably the longest of long saves in Football Manager. If you can complete this save, you can retire on Football Manager. You've done it all. So you've gone through the list. Let me know which club is exciting for you to manage on Football Manager 2026. And in case I missed any club, you can let me know in the comment section as well, and I'll go ahead and check them out and see if their story is just as interesting. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in another video.